Welcome, everyone. It's 6 o'clock on Monday night, and you're listening to the 73rd installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour on www.hamiltonradio.net, Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels, a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Age Out Angels provides one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to survive. We try to help young people avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face if they don't have a proper safety net. This program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G, William Saunders, Ruben Rodriguez, and all the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who allow us to use this airtime. Doc G is on the big board tonight. Good to see you, Doc. Thanks for being here. We're without Robin, our producer, for the next 2 weeks, for this week and next week. So there's no producer on set, ladies and gentlemen, and you know what that means. Chaos. Chaos is very possible tonight, so don't go away. Thank you so much at home for tuning in. We've put together what I hope you will find to be an insightful and compelling view of the child welfare nonprofit system. So get ready, because tonight on the radio hour, how do aging out youth in Arkansas fare compared to the rest of the country? A new report says there's good news and bad news, and we'll get to it. A new AFCARS report shows trending numbers in foster care, and we'll talk a little about the Vermont foster care system as well, along with a new study that offers 3 things that schools can be doing better to help foster youth. Also, notes from an interview with the director of the new movie Instant Family. And in a minute, I'm going to introduce you to ERIN FRIAR, community manager of Base Camp Trenton. And a little later in the show, we'll speak with Brad Butler II, an empowerment speaker. His company is called Brad Butler and Associates. So please, find us on Facebook, but I actually kind of need to specify that a little bit right now, because this is a pre-recorded show. And what that means is if you're watching this in December at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, stop watching. Go away. Don't share it. Don't do anything. We're just making an archival copy on Facebook, okay? But if you're watching this in February, on February 11th, okay, and you're looking at the set, yes, our Christmas decorations are still up, but that's just because it's December now for us. But if you're watching this in February, it's also confusing, isn't it? If you're watching this at 6 o'clock on Monday, February 11th, then hit that share button on Facebook immediately. We need you to do that. Tell the world what we're doing here, and go to your email and tell everyone to go to www.hamiltonradio.net, Channel 2. What you're going to hear tonight deserves to be shared with the whole world. Don't keep this private to yourself. Help us share it. We need you to do that. And while you're doing that, while you're hitting that share button, let me remind you that we're on every Monday from 6 to 7 with the Age Out Angels Radio Hour, and we have a great lineup of guests coming up. Next week, February 18th, representatives from Isles will be here to talk about lead in the environment. And on February 25th, you'll meet representatives from the Henry J. Austin Health Center and learn about healthcare delivery methods in the urban setting. So 2 shows that are going to be very, very interesting coming up in the next 2 weeks. Be sure to tune in every Monday at 6 p.m. for our unfiltered look at the child welfare system. This is where you come to get the whole truth. I can almost guarantee you won't hear any of the things we're going to discuss tonight on the nightly news. This is the only place you can get it. Hey, shout out to our friend Lynn Tonini from the Aging Out Institute. Lynn actually retweeted several good stories a few weeks ago, and I haven't had a chance to bring them to light, but I want to give them to you tonight. And we start with a story that originated in the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette, written by Clara Turnage, who writes a little good news and a little bad news. The good news is youth in Arkansas who age out of the foster care system are finding housing and vocational training at a higher rate than the national average, okay? A higher rate than the national average. But the bad news is, while they're in the system, they experience more placements. That means they get moved around from home to home. They spend more time in institutional or group homes and have fewer family reunifications than the national average. And this is all according to the Fostering Youth Transitions Report from the Ann E. Casey Foundation. The Fostering Youth Transitions Report is one of the first national studies of the child welfare system where all 50 states can compare data. For the record, this is actually based on 2016 data. Youth are considered to begin the transition phase at the age of 18. The report shows that 60% of Arkansas youth aged out or left the foster care system on their own after their 18th birthday, and the national average is 51%. And you have to wonder why that is. I mean, it's one thing to have numbers. It's a whole other thing to understand what those numbers represent. And you know, there are a couple of ways that you can encourage a child to leave the foster care system at the age of 18. For example, if you sit that child down and you say, hey, pal, you have two choices. You could either continue to live under the yoke of oppression in the foster care system, or you could be, are you ready for it? Emancipated. You could be free. Now, if you're an 18-year-old, which of those two choices is going to be the attractive one for you? So in a way, if you think about it, a lot of it depends how you sell it, right? And I cannot tell you for a fact that this is the case in Arkansas, and anyone from Arkansas is welcome to come on and tell me why I'm completely wrong. And the reason people age out of foster care earlier in Arkansas than anywhere else in the country is because they're just so mature and ready. You can tell me that. You can make that argument. I'm here. I'll listen to it. Okay? Another problem is in many places, youth moving from home to home before leaving foster care. And what that does, it inhibits young adults from making the connections that they need after foster care. Those connections are everything, especially if they live in group homes, which tend to limit their real-world experiences. You know, from doing laundry to cooking meals to being able to have a job as a teenager, some of those things become really difficult in a group home setting, leaving youth unprepared when they age out. Another story from the Rutland Herald. Anyone out there read the Rutland Herald from Rutland, Vermont? Interesting stuff. Annual report of the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's AFCARS, the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System. And AFCARS is kind of the gold standard of data. That's what everyone uses when they need to draw data. And this one draws data on youth in foster care from each state. And they found 442,995, so say 443,000 youth living in foster care as of September 30th, 2017. And that total is almost 6,500 above last year's AFCARS report, a 1.5% increase from 2016. And it's also an 11.6% increase from 2012. You know, the number of youth in foster care peaked in 1999 when AFCARS counted, are you ready for this? 567,000 children were in foster care in 1999. The total dropped every year until it reached 397,000 in 2012. And for a third consecutive year, Department of Health and Human Services officials connected the rise in foster care placements with drug use. And you know, again, you have to look through the numbers. And a lot of what makes the numbers of foster care youth go down right now is the attempt by many states to not place children in the foster care system, but rather in some form of kinship care or guardianship sort of situation. And many times these families are not certified foster families. And so a couple of things happen. Number one, they don't get counted in the data, and it looks like the number went down. The other thing is they don't get as much money from the state, which is terrible, because lots of times, I mean, the kids get farmed out to a grandmother who's living on Social Security, and she doesn't get, you know, as much money as a certified foster family would. So you really have to look behind the numbers. The report shows that the foster care experience in Vermont is quite challenging. In addition to the trauma of abuse or neglect that resulted in being removed from their homes and placed in the foster care system, experiences while in foster care, including frequent moves, can lead to worse outcomes for youth. In Vermont, 66% of foster children reported episodes while in the system, and nearly 65% of children in placements were moved more than 3 times. Less than a quarter of young people who received a federally funded transition service received services for employment, education, or housing. So the federal government funds transition services, and less than 25 out of 100 actually receive services for employment, education, or housing. Young people transitioning from foster care to adulthood need healthy and permanent relationships with caring adults. This has been proven. The evidence proves that this makes a huge difference. They need reliable resources and accessible opportunities that will ensure their well-being and success just as much as anyone else. No one's trying to, put them above anyone else. All we're trying to do in the work that we do is to level the playing field and help them navigate the twists and turns along the path to adulthood. Hey, did you see Instant Family? It's just coming out now because we're taping in December, but by February, it'll probably be on Netflix, right? A new family-friendly comedy starring Mark Wahlberg, and the basis of the film comes from the true story of director and co-writer Sean Anders. He also directed Daddy's Home and Hot Tub Time Machine, so deep stuff, you know. Anders and his wife Beth chose to adopt a foster child and ended up adopting 3 siblings, creating, you guessed it, an instant family, thus the title of the film. In an interview with Anders and co-writer John Morris, they said, the foster care system is notorious for being full of kids who just need someone, anyone, to help them, whether it's issues at home or birth parents' inability to care for them for whatever reason. These kids are aging out of the system faster than they can be placed. Sean Anders actually spoke a little more about what good a movie like Instant Family can do for the cause. And this is a quote from him. There are 500,000 kids in foster care right now. And of that, 100,000 kids don't have much hope of reunification. They are going to end up aging out of the system, and those kids are kids like any other kids. They need love, and they have love to give. And he says, that's what I'm hoping will come out of the movie. There have been great movies made about foster care, but they tend to reinforce the ideas people have, like negative ideas about the kids in the system. I'm hoping by shedding a more honest and positive light, the stories of people I've met who've gone through some really rough times, this will resonate with the public. So he says, so yeah, my hope is to tell a more complete picture of that. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing the movie. I honestly haven't seen it yet, but hey, it's only December. By February, I will. You know what the cool thing about pre-recording is? In February, when we're all watching this show, when I say we're all, I mean we'll all be watching it together. I'll be watching it. Gene, I know you'll be watching it, Doc. And my guests will be home, and they'll be watching it. We'll all be on Facebook together. And if you want to write a comment into the comments field, you can do that. And all of us can answer you in real time. So by then, I will have seen Instant Family. I promise. I hope. So you can't call in. That's the bottom line. Sometimes you can when we're live, but you can't call in tonight because we're not. But you can write in the comments field on Facebook, so feel free to do that. Nicole's out there listening. Frank is out there listening. Hi, folks. Hey, Stacy. Stacy's listening. We have a bunch of people listening. That's pretty cool. Come back in February, please. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll chat with ERIN FRIAR, Community Manager of Base Camp Trenton. You're going to hear some very interesting stuff that you might want to apply where you live. So hit the share button, please, on Facebook, and stay right where you are. Back in a minute. And we are back. My guest is ERIN FRIAR. She's the community manager of an organization called Base Camp Trenton. ERIN, welcome to the Age Out Angels Radio Hour.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. So basically what we're talking about here is the idea of co-working space, right?
Correct.
So can you explain to the audience sort of what that is and where it comes from?
Yeah, sure. So co-working essentially is just shared office space. So, instead of paying $1,000, $2,000 to get your own office space that you don't really need all that space. You can pay a couple of $100, much less, to work in a space where other people work. So you can sit at a table where there are multiple other folks.
So where did this start? Did we invent it in Trenton, I hope?
No.
Trenton makes,
That's true. We are the first co-working space in Trenton, but we did not create the idea of co-working. It actually sprouted up in the U.S. about 20 years ago in San Francisco. And according to my research, there have been the number of spaces have doubled almost every year since about 2005 in the States.
San Francisco beats us to being overly cool again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll catch up one of these days. All right, so the idea of shared office space is instead of paying $1 bazillion to have your own separate space, and in addition paying for telephone and internet and all the other things that go with that, you can share a space or rent a space temporarily or part-time.
Yeah, and one of the greatest things about co-working is that it's flexible. So, you can come on with a plan where you work 1 day a week or 2 days a week, and you can work weird hours. You can work 9 p.m. or on a Saturday morning. And it's also flexible in that you can cancel anytime you want. So if you need to take a break, say you can't pay rent for a few months for whatever reason, you can take a break and come back when you're ready. And
so you're not bound to a lease in that situation and losing
right.
a security deposit and all that stuff that goes with it.
Exactly.
I mean, this is part of the reason that we're telling this to the audience is because I think this is something that's incredibly essential in the nonprofit world.
Absolutely.
If you're sitting out there and you're thinking, how do I get my nonprofit off the ground, right? Mm-hmm. One of the ways to do that, I would think, would be to be considering a shared space. Do you get an address as well when you do that?
Yes, you do. And we actually have a number of folks on our mail only plan. So that basically gives you a business address that you can use for tax purposes, and you can also use to legitimize your nonprofit or your business. And then we forward your mail to your house or to wherever you want to receive your mail.
And a lot of people who start nonprofits run it out of their homes.
They sure do.
It's not like they have a ton of money for office space when they start out, right? So having another address, can be really important. And also, you don't always want to put your home address on everything that goes out to the public.
Yes,
right?
And if you use your home address on many forms that are related to becoming a 501c3, you run into a lot of problems with it being your home address. So you can pay a very small fee, less than you might pay for internet for a month, to get a business address, a legitimate business address.
Well, see, now that's the part about this that I really wanted to get you on the air for. Because I've seen other organizations that offer shared space. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like even though it was less than having an individual office, it was still more than a typical nonprofit, especially a startup nonprofit, would be able to pay. Mm-hmm. And Basecamp Trenton, even though it's a for-profit organization, seems like it's sort of incredibly sensitive to the needs, right, of nonprofit people, and you're walking that fine line between making enough money to keep your doors open, right, but being as helpful as you can to nonprofits and benefit the community.
Yeah, absolutely, and we are really trying to support that nonprofit community. There are tons of nonprofits in the Mercer County area and in Trenton, and we're really trying to make sure that, you can have a plan that's you work 4 days a month for $75 a month. And we're very flexible. We have our plans on our website. You can see the listed plans there. But we're also, almost all of our members have a unique plan that's unique to their needs. And we work with nonprofits, giving nonprofits a 20% discount.
It's wonderful. And the prices are just so reasonable in the first place. Your plans, and we'll talk about what some of those flexible plans are, so that even if you're not in the Trenton area, you can at least have a sort of a standard measure by which to measure people who are charging you for office space. So who are your clients?
Yeah, so our clients, we have a really diverse group of clients. We have some folks who are entrepreneurs, starting their own businesses. We have some folks who are remote workers for companies that work in New York, but they work from home, but they just like to have company while they work. We have 2 artists in residence that use this as their studio. And we have a lot of, one-time folks that meet up between Philly and New York that are trying to just have a central place to meet. So we have a really diverse group of folks.
That's such a good point, too, when people start up businesses at home, whether for-profit or nonprofit. It gets lonely.
It sure does.
And you never leave your house. And so, having a place that you can go to just to fight with someone over the fax machine, can be worth the price of admission. You came here from Boston.
That's right. I did.
What were you doing in Boston? It got cold, right? And you came
it's very cold
south.
there. So I moved from Boston about a year ago. I have a degree in journalism from Suffolk University. And I've never done co-working management before in the past, but I did work in the marketing industry and the restaurant industry for a number of years. And managing a co-working space has a lot of overlapping roles that you would do in those kind of jobs as well.
I point that out because no one's going to believe you came from Boston. I mean, I've been with you for over an hour. You haven't said wicked hot once.
Yeah.
Not one time. So how long have you been with Basecamp Trenton?
I've been with Basecamp for a little over a year.
So what was the whole relaunch thing? Like, Basecamp's been around for a while, but then it relaunched.
That's right. So we are a project of Siegel Labatt Commercial Real Estate, which is one of the largest real estate companies in Trenton and Mercer County. And my boss, Ann Labatt, she opened the space for co-working about 4 years ago. And she didn't have a dedicated manager at that time. So when I came on the scene, we decided to really relaunch the space, reorganize how it looks, reorganize the marketing message, and retarget towards who the community actually is, artists and nonprofits. So originally the space had been opened up for entrepreneurs, but we're really trying to focus on who's already in Trenton, which are mostly nonprofits.
Well, actually, when you think about the city of Trenton, your location is kind of in a cool place.
I think so.
Well, I'm not just saying that to unduly flatter you. You're like right around the corner from a place called Artworks.
Correct.
Right, which is a huge artist space. It's practically an urban artist colony.
Yeah, exactly. And Artworks has been a great partner for us, a great resource to learn about the artist community that's in Trenton. That's just as important to us as the nonprofits.
Right. And you walk out the front door of your building and you walk down the street and you're sort of in these, what are they, 18th century row homes?
Mill Hill.
Yeah, they're phenomenal architectural marvels.
Gorgeous.
So you're in that, and then there's a park nearby. So you sort of have a lot going for you environmentally.
Yeah, there's wonderful. It's a great place to be. The location is specifically, it's about a 10-minute walk from the Trenton Transit Center, so you can take the train in from Philly or New York. And once you're there, there's a couple of great restaurants on Front Street right by us.
Oh yeah.
And there's Mill Hill Park, and it's a great place to be.
It's a good place to be an artist, I think.
Definitely.
But now, when I went there, though, I think it was maybe a couple of years ago. I believe when I went there, it predated your arrival.
Yeah.
Right? And they were talking about this, but the place looked like it needed a facelift.
Yeah,
can we say it that way?
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to say the lower level was a dirt floor, but
yeah.
but it just, you know what I'm saying? It just looked like it kind of. And then I saw some recent pictures. I was on your website, and it looks like the whole thing has had a facelift.
It definitely has. I mean, I would say it's more like a creative reimagining of the space more than an actual renovation. The building itself is a gorgeous 19th century building that was top to bottom renovated about 10 years ago. And since then, let's say it's been well loved. But when we opened up the space for co-working, we really tried to, just pack it full of beautiful local artists, their work, and we have a lot of plants in the building, and take a book, leave a book, if you're familiar with that concept. Sure. So the place is, we try to say that it's your basic no-frills office space, just to get you started. But we do try to make it very homey, try to make it comforting, and a place where people feel like they can get to know each other.
Yeah, and also the going on the art theme, you support the local artists and people like that. I was reading about this thing, First Friday.
Yeah, First Fridays.
What's that?
So when we relaunched the space, we really wanted to come up with a fun, low commitment way for people to come in and check out the space and learn about our services. And, you just can't get people to come in without some kind of event. And I thought, how can we get people in the building? And we have this amazing artist community, so diverse, so many. And I thought, hey, let's do art shows, and we can help promote the local artists and get people into our space. So it's a win-win. And can't take credit for it being on the first Friday, though.
What do you mean?
So
was that a city thing, First Friday, or a local?
So it was promoted by Trenton Social,
Okay.
Our local favorite watering hole. They've been promoting local artists on the first Friday of the month for years. And so we had the thought, hey, let's join in on that, and we'll do our show very early from 5 to 8, and then hopefully people visit us first and then end their night at Trenton Social.
I see. That's very smart. And there's nothing lost about not having originated the idea. When you latch onto a good idea and support it, I'll bet local artists are thrilled.
Yes, definitely.
Right, to have an opportunity to present their things. And what other things are you doing to help local people? What did I see? I saw something about.
So we have a couple of new programs.
Programs, yes.
So we are most recently developed the idea of our Sponsor a Desk program, which is a way for nonprofits or universities to pay for a desk in our office space. So you say you pay $100 a month for that desk to be available for a couple of days a month, so that people who are recipients of your nonprofit, who might need office space to work on their resume, apply to jobs, or just have a space with Wi-Fi for whatever reason, you can have a space where you pay just a very small amount of money to have a space for people to send them to.
And others then can use that space, and you determine who those others are?
No, so it's up to the nonprofit. The nonprofit, we just say this is, for example, we'd say this is the seat for Age Out Angels. And Age Out Angels tells me who and when is going to be there, right. And they have that desk, and it's their desk.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so tell me how many people we can actually fit in this space.
Depends on who you're asking.
And what are the good desks? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question. We do have a variety of desks. So some people think that we have low desks, we have high desks, we have some standing desks.
I want 4 legs.
Yeah, 4 legs.
I won't stand for 3.
So we can, at one moment in time, we can fit about 30 people in the building. So we have a lot more space for people to fill up and get to know each other and build their businesses.
So what are the sort of the way, how does the pricing work? And I know people can go on your website and see this, which is, your website is?
It's basecamptrenton.com.
Basecamptrenton.com. Basecamptrenton.com.
Yeah.
But tell us what some of the different programs and pricing things are.
Sure. So we have a couple of different pricing programs on the website through memberships. And we base our prices on how many days a week you think you're going to work. So if you're thinking you just really want to get started and you're not sure how often you're going to be there, we have a $75 a month plan that gets you 4 days a month of work. And also, all of our plans have baked in parking and private meeting time.
Having parking in Trenton.
Yeah, it's nice.
That's one of the most fabulous things in the world. So what would you suggest for someone who's just starting? What would a pricing program be?
Sure. So I think that we just introduced a new plan called the Delaware Demo that allows people to try out the space and see if they like it first. So that's actually $45 a month, and you can work up to 3 days a week. So 12 days a month, and there's 6 hours of private meeting time. And this is a temporary plan for 2 months. So you can use this plan for 2 months. get yourself acquainted with the space, get to know the other folks that are there, see if it works for you. And if it does, then upon that third month that you're still there, then we would assign you to one of our permanent plans.
Okay. All right. Good. And so one final thought here. I'm looking at something about a nonprofit talk series.
Yes, yeah, that's in the works. We have so many nonprofit members and friends that come in and do their board meetings, and often they're asking me specific questions about how to become a 501c3 and how to get funding and how to, recruit volunteers and all those things. And while I have some knowledge on the topic, I'm not an expert. So we are organizing a nonprofit talk series to specifically address some of these questions and better serve our nonprofit members. So that's in the works.
And so when do you think that'll happen? Is there a timetable on that?
We're hoping to have our first meeting in February and throughout the winter months.
ERIN FRIAR, Community Manager, Base Camp Trenton. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I will be back with Brad Butler, an empowerment speaker. And so you are going to be empowered before this show is over. I promise you that. ERIN, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Great to have you here.
Pleasure having you. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Brad Butler. Don't go away. And there's still time to hit that share button on Facebook, okay? See you soon. And we are back. Before we go further, I do need to thank all the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week. We thank you so very much for your generous donations. Because this is December and the show is running in February, I have no idea who you are, or I'd thank you personally. But when I come back live in March, I promise I will thank each and every one of you personally, because we appreciate it so much. And without you, we don't exist, and we're very much aware of that. Hey, if you have an employee giving fund or matching gifts foundation associated with your place of work, we would certainly appreciate your contacting us, telling us how we can participate in that. Private message me on Facebook or email to greg@ageoutangels.org. And I want to remind everyone that you can donate to Age Out Angels every time you make a purchase from Amazon. All you have to do is designate Age Out Angels to be your Amazon Smile designee. And a portion of your payment will go to Age Out Angels without it costing you 1 penny more. I can make it easy for you to designate Age Out Angels as your Amazon Smile recipient. All you have to do is contact me either via Facebook or greg@ageoutangels.org, and I can send you a link that will take you directly to our designation. Back now with my guest, Brad Butler II, empowerment speaker. So, Brad, I want you to, first of all, let me say hi and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
It's a pleasure. And so tell me what an empowerment speaker is and how you got involved in doing it.
Wow. An empowerment speaker is somebody who basically wants to help to not just invoke an emotion in you, because that would be temporary, but we want to empower you to the point where you feel like it is absolutely necessary for you to make a change in your life. So the way that I got involved with motivational speaking, empowerment speaking, whatever you'd like to call it, is I actually had a teacher from high school contact me once she found out that I graduated from college and I got my bachelor's degree. She said, "Brad, you have such a great story. Why don't you come back to the school and talk to some of my kids, about your journey?" And I said, no, I can't do that. Like, I'm a nobody. Like, I'm nobody special. I just, I just forced my way through it. I was a C student, I literally just forced my way through it. I just kept coming back to class. They had to pass me. So, I just kept going. So, and eventually I ended up getting my degree. She said, no, you don't understand. Your story is powerful. You need to come back and talk to these kids. So she finally wore me down. And I said, okay, fine. I'll come in. And I said, well, at around that time, I was thinking maybe I could probably do the motivational speaking thing. I might be able to do it. And I told my fiance, hey, I'm going to give this a try. And she said, oh, you're serious? I said, yeah. And she said, I don't want to see this. I got to see this. She said, I'm taking off from work. You're taking off from work. I'm going to take pictures. We're going to record it. We're going to see how this goes. So I'm like, oh, man, like I have to take this serious now. Like my fiance is going to be there. And I went there and I gave it everything I had, all that I was capable of at the time, because I wanted it to be that if I wasn't meant to be an empowerment speaker or motivational speaker, that it wasn't a lack of effort.
Right.
So I went in and I made sure that I put my best foot forward, and I delivered my speech. And she said, you know, you can speak for like 10, 15 minutes if you want. Take up the whole class time if you want to. It's up to you. Go ahead. And I literally spoke for the entire class.
Wow.
And the kids were engaged the entire time, and the kids were asking about me the whole year. So that's when I figured out that, wow, I might have something. So that's what led me on the path.
Wow. Well, now that makes me want to hear your story, doesn't it? I mean, before we get there, because you might take up the whole class, should we talk a little bit about the book there that you're holding? It looks like you've written a book.
Yeah. So my book is Pain, Passion, Purpose. It's my first book. And my mentor talked to me a long time ago about how writing a book was important, because some people aren't going to hear your story from videos. You know, some people that's not their thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, some people are book readers and they want to sit down and they want to dive deep into the story. And sometimes an hour is not long enough for them to get your full story. So he said, listen, sit down, write your story. And I was against it. I was like, I'm not writing a book. You know, I'm not an author. Nobody in my family's ever been an author. I don't know any other authors aside from my mentor. I was like, so I'm not writing a book. Like I have grammatical errors. I don't know where to put the periods and stuff. I run on sentences. He's like, that's not your job. Your job is just to give the editor your story and let them do their job.
Okay.
So I said, okay. I just buckled down and I actually took a course on how to write a book. So I invested in myself. I took my own money and I invested in a course, and I learned how to write a book in less than 6 months. And I actually wrote it in 2 weeks. Okay. I sat down and I was so focused on it that I really wanted to get it done. I wrote the book in 2 weeks, and it took me less than 6 months to, go through the whole process, get everything done, get the money together for, the production of the book.
And so the book is called Pain, Passion, Purpose. And do people get it on Amazon? Is that where they go?
Yeah, it'll actually be released January 22nd. They can pre-order the ebook right now on Amazon, though.
Wow. I'm reading the back cover notes. Brad's childhood consisted of, whoa. You wouldn't believe what the back of this book says. I just don't want to do a spoiler on you, because
no, it's quite all right.
I want you to tell. Would you tell this story a little bit right now? Would you give us a little piece of that? Ladies and gentlemen, let me just warn you, you need to be sitting down when you hear this. I think, the interesting part before we get to it is that it seemed like when you looked in the mirror, you were seeing one person. And when other people, were looking at you, they were seeing a different set of potentials in you, and sort of pushing you to head in those directions. And you to your credit, you were smart enough to listen.
It was a lot of variables.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that came into it. A lot of self-doubt, but but thankfully there were a lot of people in my life, like my mother, my father, my sister, and a few sprinkled in teachers who actually saw that there was something in me that I didn't believe was special, but they did. And they said, listen, you got something, and whatever it is, we need you to go out there and find it and then just live in it. So I said, okay, we'll figure this out one way or another.
Yeah. Pain, Passion, Purpose by Brad Butler II. Go to Amazon and buy it. Unless we could get it on the Aging Out Institute's book buying website, so they could make a few pennies at the same time. I'm always trying to figure out ways to help nonprofits. Brad, don't let me stop you. Tell us what your story is.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm originally from Jersey City. That's where all my family is from. And, growing up in Jersey City, an inner city area, we dealt with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of things that most people have heard about in the inner city area. We dealt with poverty. We dealt with drug use. We dealt with, there were gangs and different things like that within the area. Me personally, with my story, my father happened to be a very popular drug dealer in Jersey City. He owned about 3 different blocks out there. So he was very, very popular and had a lot of money. And he got caught up in the drug game, and eventually he got locked up. And I'm actually lucky that he got locked up and was incarcerated, and he didn't die.
Right. Was he a user also?
It evolved into that
Yeah.
with my mother and my father,
Uh-huh.
both becoming heroin addicts,
Oh, my.
unfortunately. And they were strong-willed, I'll say that, because they realized that it was their fault and nobody else's. So they said, if we are in this situation, you know, we're going to get ourselves out of this situation. We don't see anybody else swooping in to save us.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother went to the AA meetings, and she would sit at the podium and say, you know, my name is, and this is my addiction, and these are the things that I've done.
She owned it.
Yeah, she owned it. And she would cry, you know, trying to get it out of her system. And a lot of people will say, well, how do you know, so much stuff about this in such, vivid detail? It's because I was at the meetings with my mom.
Oh, my. How old were you?
Man, I probably was, I want to say 4 or 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I was very young, but it's funny. You remember things when you're young. There's certain things that leave an impact on you. When you're young and you see your mother cry, the only thing you want to do is fix it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you want to do. You don't care about money. You don't know what an addiction is. You just want to fix the problem, and stop your mom from feeling like she has to cry. And with my father, he was someone who despised weakness. So when he realized that the addiction had a hold of him, he locked himself in the house, and he beat his addiction cold turkey.
Wow.
And, I witnessed him go through withdrawal and throwing up in the cold sweats and helping my mother put him in the bathtub when he was sick and things like that. I've actually saw my father get high in front of me before. He didn't, realize that I was even in the room,
right?
Because the addiction had taken over. And he fought and got through it. He beat that addiction.
How much time did he get in prison?
You know what? The funny thing about it is I never actually asked my father how long he was in jail. Mm-hmm. It was one of those things where once we were able to get past it, we wanted him to be able to just put it behind him.
Yeah.
And just move forward.
About it, right.
Just move forward.
Yeah.
He put it behind him. He didn't want to go back to jail. He didn't want to sell drugs anymore. He wanted to be on the straight and narrow. He wanted to be a good father and be in my life and my sister's life. He said, I just want to leave all that stuff behind.
Right.
And just keep moving forward. So we left it alone.
That's fair. Yeah.
We left it alone, and we just kept on moving forward. My father became a blue-collar worker, and he was very good with his hands, doing a lot of construction work. And my mom went out, and I think one of the things that changed for me within the educational system is my mom, after I moved from Jersey City to East Windsor, I was placed in special ed classes. And what helped me going through the educational system and dealing with being in special ed classes was the fact that my mom went and got her bachelor's degree, and then she went on and got her master's degree. Wow. So without her even realizing it, she showed me that it was possible. Like, it was encoded in my DNA in some way, shape, or form that, Brad, you can do better than just high school. Mm-hmm. Like no matter what they're telling you, I had teachers telling me, listen, you can't go to college. It's not going to work for you. Like, on your IEP, it says that Brad Butler is not capable of verbalizing his thoughts. So all this, that you're thinking about of going to college, it's not going to happen. And I said, listen, if my mom can do it, I know somewhere inside me I can do it. And if my mom and my dad can beat a heroin addiction, I can beat the educational system.
So, did it actually say in a report that you couldn't express yourself?
Yes. I actually keep my IEP.
You understand the irony of that.
Yes, I do.
At this point, right? You kept your IEP, yeah?
Absolutely. I still have it in my. I have it in my house, and I keep it there because it's a constant reminder of where I once was and where I am now, and how you can't allow yourself to be held down by someone else's labels and limitations.
Yeah, I heard a Trenton school principal one time tell the parents of a first grader that he would never really amount to anything, but don't worry because the world needs janitors too. And they're talking about this is a principal, and she's talking about a kid in first grade, So it's a story that I've heard before, and it's a tribute to your parents, I think. Because, think about how that could have gone the other way, and so frequently does, right? Mm-hmm. Father's incarcerated, mother is drug addicted, right?
Right.
What are you, like a heartbeat away from the foster care system at that point?
Yeah.
Right? You and your sister being separated.
Yeah.
Right? Being put in 2 different places. That's how that can go downhill so quickly. Really, all it would have taken is one phone call.
Absolutely.
Right? Somebody turn you in. and the next thing you know, your life takes a completely different turn. And then growing up, what is being modeled for you? Drug dealing, drug addiction, these are the things that are being modeled for you. So you grow up into thinking, well, okay, that's the life. Instead, your parents turned that whole thing around, and now, a woman with a master's degree
Yeah.
is what's being modeled for you.
Yeah.
So was there a turning point in your life? Can you look back and say, boy, there was one day or one incident or one series of incidents where I just said, I'm not going to be a C student anymore. I'm gonna get out of this IEP and kick some butt.
Yeah. There was a situation that happened when I was a junior in high school, and there was a gentleman, to protect his identity, I won't name his name.
Right.
There was a gentleman who was an athlete, at the school with me, and he was a star athlete. He was phenomenal, and we played football together, and he was just one of those people where you saw him play. It was like, how do you do that? How did he do that?
He's gifted.
Right, extremely gifted, and he had all these scholarships, everything, like all these scholarships, and I found out that he lost every last one of them. They took every scholarship away that he had because he was in special ed classes with me.
Oh my!
Because he wasn't getting college credits.
Yeah.
And it almost broke me.
Yeah.
To see somebody who I looked up to.
Right.
With everybody you have somebody, whether it be school or home, whatever, you have somebody that you kind of look up to in a sense in a certain area. And in sports, it was that person, and I was like, what? They did that to him? And the way I saw him fight back and get into, a D1 school and go on and then win a championship. And like his story was phenomenal. And I was like, wow. And he did all those things. And I said, there's no way that, I can just fall, on these labels. And then, of course, with my mother and my father, seeing them, the way they fought back, the way they just kept on pushing. My sister, she had her son when she was 17 years old. And she didn't allow anyone to say, you're not going to be a good mother, you're too young, this or that or the case. But she did what she had to do. She worked, she got a job, and she made sure she provided. So everybody within my family, I was never allowed to quit. It was always, listen, well, you're going to keep on going until you figure it out. So that was just a turning point for me. Just seeing someone like that was so close to me, and also having my family in my corner. Mm-hmm. Like it always was like, family's not an option. You got to figure it out some way, shape, or form.
So when you talk to large groups, is this sort of the story that you tell? Is that how it plays?
Yeah, normally that's how it goes. I will come out and I will tell them my story, just let them know everything that I've gone through. I think the difference between me and other speakers is that you'll have other people who come in and no slight against them, but they'll come in and they'll talk about all their accolades, all the things that they've done in their life, and the accomplishments that they have. I don't really need to talk about my accomplishments. I want you to know about the areas where I failed. That's the first thing I do. I start off telling you about where I came from. My parents were heroin addicts. I was in special ed classes. My sister was a teen mother. Like, we came from the bottom. I used to live in a shelter. Like when I was
Did you really?
Yes, I used to live in a shelter with my mother and my sister while we were trying to get things together. We were trying to figure it out. Yeah. And also while I was in Mercer County Community College and I was, striving to get my degree, I was working 2 full-time jobs, and I was a full-time student. And I was also sleeping in the empty parking lot in the backseat of my car in the wintertime because I didn't have enough money to go back and forth from my house to my home to school to job. I didn't have enough money. So I've been through it. Yeah. So when people tell me, oh, I'm working hard, I'm done, I'm like, have you really? Have you really?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you actually walked that walk? Yeah. I actually sort of tasted that at one point in my life. It didn't last for very long, and I'm not going to pretend to have the same pedigree that you do.
Oh, it's quite okay. All right. It's quite all right.
But at one time I was 11 and I was kicked out of a house at 10 o'clock at night into a snowstorm, and I sort of know how that feels to be like hurting and nowhere.
Yeah.
At that time, and you never forget it. Like you said, you never ever forget it. I can still feel the snow pelting, on top of my head and my hands. I was carrying a leather suitcase, at the time, and you never ever forget that. And so you walked through some fire. to get here, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's it feel to be where you are now? Are you married?
Not just yet.
No, okay,
Not
so
just
you
yet.
have a
Not
fiance.
officially. I do have
All
my
right.
fiance, but
What's
we're
your
working on
fiance's
it.
name?
Well, her name is LaKendra.
LaKendra, I'm working on him here for you, LaKendra.
Hey, Shug.
I hope you appreciate what I'm doing for you now.
Yeah.
So you have a fiance, and do you do other stuff besides motivational speaking, or is this your 100% thing?
No, I'm not 100% an entrepreneur just yet. I'm working on it. I'm just building it up for now. So I just do a lot of work overnight to allow me to have the flexibility in my schedule to speak in the schools in the morning time, in the evening, and that type of thing. So
Oh, okay. So you leave that space clear.
Absolutely.
Because that's the time that's good for you to go to schools and things like that. I would expect you're an extremely valuable commodity when it comes to speaking to kids in schools.
I would hope so. One thing I will say, to touch on what you said earlier, pray that I never get to that school that you were talking about earlier with that principal.
Oh.
Because if I do,
Yeah.
I'm going to light a fire in those kids in the lights that they have never seen before.
Isn't that something?
I
Yeah.
promise. I
Yeah.
put that on everything that I love, because I hate to hear something like that.
Yeah.
And it just makes me like, I will dig in the dirt to find
Yeah.
where that happened at.
Absolutely.
And do everything in my power. You can't pay me, I don't care. I don't care. I'm coming and I'll speak for an hour. And I'll stay for question and answer, and I'll walk around the school, mentor the kids. I don't care. But you don't talk to kids like that.
Absolutely.
You never tell a child something like that. And I swear, when I have my children, I better not ever hear you
Right.
put down my child's dreams and tell them what they can and cannot do.
Yeah.
I will be at that school so fast, or I'm pulling them from the school, one or the other.
Uh-huh. We handled it the West Windsor way. We sued them.
Oh. Hey, there you go.
What's the message?
There
What's
you
the
go.
message you want to leave our audience with, Brad?
Man, so I'll leave you the message with the title from my book, Pain, Passion, Purpose. The one thing I want people to understand is that the pain that you're going through, or you have gone through in your life, that's just fuel for your passion. And in turn, what's going to actually happen is that your passion is going to push you toward your purpose. So if you're in that situation right now where you're thinking about giving up, or you're thinking about, dropping everything, you're just kind of at that breaking point, you're standing over the edge, man, I just need you to understand that there's another life for you, There's more out there for you. Don't think that the things that have happened to you in your life were built to break you down. They were built to just build you up and turn you into the person that you were really meant to be in this world. And the reason why it hurts so bad is because you're going through a transition period. But everything in this world has a transition period. So whether that be coal turning into a diamond, or grapes being turned to wine, seeds being planted into the ground to become flowers, whatever it is, you're just going through that transition period, and just don't stop going through the process, and get a return on your investment. If it hurts, it's hurting for a reason. It's changing you. So get whatever it is that you're supposed to be getting from it, and become the person that you're supposed to become. Because somebody told me a long time ago that if you don't go out in this world and tell your story and be the person that you're supposed to be, somebody could possibly die. And I don't mean that you're going to be the one to stab or shoot them or anything of that nature, but it means somebody is dealing with a drug addiction, somebody is dealing with homelessness, somebody is dealing with all types of different things within their life, and they need your story to get through it. So please be a blessing to somebody and go out and tell your story.
Absolutely. Beautifully said, sir. Beautifully said. And I hope people realize that that's not just a lesson for young people either. There's plenty of people in my generation right now who are feeling that exact same thing. We retire from the corporate world, and then we wake up one morning and look in the mirror and say, what am I worth now? People used to look up to me. I used to manage 18 people. I had a budget of $3.5 million. I had purpose, damn it. But now what happened? Now I'm a dinosaur. What do I do now? And I tell people all the time that it took me 60 years to figure out what I was supposed to be when I grow up. 60 years to do that. And I did a lot of stuff in the middle. I raised a family and all kinds of stuff like that. But who I was actually supposed to be, You know, it took me 60 years to figure out. Brad Butler II, the book is Pain, Passion, Purpose. Go to Amazon.com. And don't forget to designate Age Out Angels as your Amazon Smile designee. And buy this book and hire this young man to speak to your people, because his story is just amazing. We're going to take a short break. I'll be back in a minute with some final words. There's still time to hit the share button. I mean, there's not a whole lot left, maybe 5 minutes to the show, but it'll be a good 5 minutes. I promise it'll be a compelling 5 minutes. So hit that share button. Don't go away. Brad, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure having you here. Thank you. And we are back from Education Week. 3 ways schools can help students leaving foster care land on their feet. This is important stuff. Senior year transitions can be tough, and this is written by Sarah D. Sparks. Yeah, finalizing credits, applying for colleges, considering jobs, and if students are in the foster care system, it can mean becoming suddenly homeless and without family support. Here's how schools can keep the transition from derailing students' education. A new study released by the Annie Casey Foundation finds that half of foster-involved teenagers leave the system without having been either reunited with their birth family or having found a new family for adoption or guardianship. Black and Hispanic students were at least 10% more likely to be emancipated in this way than their white peers. Many of these students are emancipated before they graduate high school, and the transition can make continuing their education significantly harder. According to the report, only 76% of students transitioning from foster care graduate high school. That's 3 out of 4. 1 out of 4 does not graduate high school. High school. This is a group of young people that schools could wrap their arms around, says Leslie Gross, Director of Youth Opportunities Initiative. This is an opportunity where there could be more investment and collaboration between child welfare agencies and schools. Think about that now, investment and collaboration between child welfare agencies and schools. And that is one of the pillars of community schooling. If you're a regular listener to this show, you know we've talked about this a couple of times. The study tracked state data on the 25% of students in foster care age 14 and older, more than 171,000 students nationwide. Some 26,000 age out of the system each year. Those state rules vary significantly from, are you ready, 16 to 21. I was not aware before I read this article that you can actually age out of foster care at the age of 16 in some states. I mean, to me, that seems insane. 21 is too young. 16 is just completely out of the question. Of exiting students who received transition services, only 23% had employment or vocational training, and the same portion had help with finding money to continue their education. So 23% are actually getting the help they need. Fewer than 1 in 5 foster students even had support for finding housing after leaving the foster system. I had a phone call 15 minutes from a young man who's aging out in 4 months, and the first thing he said to me is, can you help me find housing? You age out into homelessness. It's the foster care to prison pipeline. You age out, you're homeless, you become what we used to call a vagrant, right? You're living on the streets, eating out of trash cans. Eventually you get arrested, and there, you're in prison. These are important considerations for schools, which under the Every Student Succeeds Act. Did you know there's an act? There's a law. It's ESSA, E-S-S-A, Every Student Succeeds Act. Schools have to track the academic achievement and graduation rates of their foster and homeless students. And now, are you ready for this? This is how seriously states take the ESSA rule. As of this September, only 33 states provide support for districts in meeting ESSA requirements for foster students. Now, this study provides state-by-state statistics on racial and age demographics of students in foster care and their transition supports. And here are the recommendations that schools, these are the 3 things schools can do. Number 1, build relationships. Relationships, one of the most important things. Kids have got to have relationships with people who care about them when they age out of the system. The report found that half students in foster care experience at least 3 placements. Number 2 is share data and information among school and child welfare agencies. More than a third of emancipated foster students reported experiencing homelessness. Schools should be aware of when a student is expected to leave foster care and connect him or her to other social support organizations. And finally, provide academic opportunities. You just heard my guest say that he was mired in his special ed group, right? Well, because of the higher rates of trauma and missed school and mobility, students in foster care are often less likely to be tapped for academic enrichment or other programs. But such programs can keep students academically engaged when they leave the foster care system. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another hour talking about youth who should matter more in our political and economic discourse than they do. And we thank you so much for tuning in, maybe helping us spread the word. Again, we offer humble thanks to Hamilton Radio, to my most excellent guests, ERIN FRIAR, Community Manager of Base Camp Trenton, Brad Butler II, Empowerment Speaker. And thanks to our engineer, Doc G. Music provided by Kurt Seldom-Ridge, owner-operator of the Cave Rehearsal Recording Space in Pennsylvania. Our webmaster is Carmen Garcia Valera. Our social media specialist is Bailey Braverman. Join me next Monday. Next week, February 18th, when my guests will be representatives from Isles who will talk about their studies on lead in the environment and its effect on developing young people and their plan for mitigation. So until then, let's make this week the best week ever. Have a great evening.